Welcome, my 193 subscribers, all of you who haven't given up on AEW yet, and to those of you who think AEW is kind of turning into the WWE, but is somewhat okay with it. It's like another phase of the company. So yeah, welcome to my review of AEW Dynamite for the September 28th show. Let's begin. So the show opens up with the JAS celebration for Chris Jericho winning the Ocho. It's them taunting the crowd with pizzas, Chris Jericho burying Ring of Honor, and they also make Daniel Garcia look stupid. We get an appearance by Luigi Primo, which I'm all for, by the way. This is all for the first part, and it shifts to the second part when Daniel Garcia takes out Primo, unfortunately. This part was really good. Cool Hand Ange is finally finding his way around the microphone. He's a lot better now than he was before. He has this thing where his voice breaks, and it's really entertaining for a bunch of goons. And as for Daddy Magic, what else can I say? This guy's just oozing with fucking mic work. Just oozing with charisma. That accent will never get old, and him bad-mouthing Garcia in the second half of the segment kind of feels like it hits. He portrays it like a betrayal by Garcia very well. And as for Anna Jay, not quite there yet. It's very funny but also cringy as well. You have to get over that hump in order to be average at promos. Jericho dominates this whole segment though. He plays the crowd like a fiddle as expected from a veteran like him. He almost talks so exaggerated like. It's like he shoves it down people's throats. It's like he hammers in the words every time he talks. It gets annoying sometimes, but I guess that's how some people like it. But for me, you can be a bit subtle. But yeah, in the second half of this segment, Garcia does a face turn. There is chaos within the ranks, and then Bryan Danielson is just there to push it even further. He goes all passive-aggressive to start. He doesn't say, join the Blackpool Combat Club or something. He says, you decide. It's like how parents get away with stuff. It's how they make their kids want to do something. But this pushes Jericho to exert his authority over Garcia, almost losing his individuality. He treats him like his bitch, his property and stuff, and this pisses Garcia off. But the turn doesn't feel complete until there's hands thrown, until Garcia actually actively hurts Jericho, which will be an interesting storyline to follow in next week's match. But yeah, they set up a match between Garcia and Danielson versus Jericho and Guevara. And the selecting of Guevara is a bit random, or a bit too convenient since he's the other young guy in the team. It could have been anyone else, but I guess he's the one that makes sense to pick. It hasn't been shown that Sammy and Daniel have been having this rivalry or anything. They haven't even interacted with each other at all. It would have been better if there was a rivalry that slowly simmered, that was presented in the previous weeks of Dynamite, and not just a challenge just because he's an obvious pick. I think it should have been teased that Sammy and Daniel aren't okay with each other in order to get the full effect of this turn. But yeah, the segment ends with the part I said a while ago. 2.0, or especially Daddy Magic, makes it feel like a betrayal to them, what Garcia is doing, and he unintentionally challenges Bryan Danielson to a match up next. And you know what? I've never seen AEW do this before, where they set up a match during a non-wrestling segment that happens right after. I'm not used to this with AEW, but it's alright. That's why I said in the intro that AEW is taking a lot of cues from the WWE, and this is one of them. It's a match set up during a promo segment, happens up next, and the winner is very obvious. But yeah, this segment was alright. It could have been done better if there was just a little more build to Garcia against Sammy. And what about Lee Moriarty? Are we just gonna forget about him? Is he gonna appear at Rampage? Lee Moriarty is the next contender for that belt. And it already looks like they're setting up a match between Garcia and Sammy. So yeah, they should have at least gotten that match out of the way first. And it looks very obvious that Moriarty's gonna lose, and that's just gonna hurt his faction. So yeah, I don't know how that's gonna play out. It's starting to feel like a side thing, and it definitely devalues Lee Moriarty a bit. So yeah, on to the match after this, which is between Bryan Danielson and Matt Menard. This match is like the most TV match that I've seen from Danielson in AEW. It's basically just a run through of like all of Danielson's moves. Matt Menard is a bit janky with his. I don't think they click that much. And the crowd was silent for the start of the match. They managed to get the crowd into it, but this is mostly because the crowd was like just getting pumped up. This was the opening match and it didn't feel like the usual AEW banger, but I know that these are necessary to just move the chains of a storyline or like prolong your career. But this is the opening match. Something else should have been here and not like an ordinary TV match by Danielson and Daddy Magic. So yeah. And the most entertaining part of this was an outside interference. And yeah, we get some outside interferences. It honestly could have used more to like be more entertaining, especially with this tag team here. But this save by Claudio, like this part where Claudio just like crucifix bomb carries Cool Hand Ange, is the spot of the match, and it really made it a lot more watchable. So yeah, because of this, they get the crowd more into it. They do the finish, which is like a Busaiku knee followed by a label lock for the submission win. This gives Danielson a nice win for next week. And yeah, I just have a little more to add to the opening segment. Jericho doesn't expound on the storyline until the end of the show, or like until after his match with Bandido, but the way he buries Ring of Honor I think makes sense since, let's face it, it's pretty much true. Him holding the title, I think gets more eyes on it. It's made that title the most valuable it has ever been, even if he just throws it to the floor later on in the night. So yeah, I'm kind of liking this direction, but I'll talk about it more as he expounds on it after his match. So this one is like a TV undercard only match. It definitely couldn't be any higher, so yeah. So after this is supposed to be like the MJF promo time that we hear from MJF that we get every week on Dynamite. But Wheeler Yuta instead comes out and then cuts his own promo. And he's definitely improved. He's improved on his intensity, as well as the words that he uses. It's a lot less basic than what other wrestlers usually do. It has a lot of like meaning behind it, a lot of content. But the delivery, man, it's just poor. His voice breaks a lot. The man should practice a lot more. But yeah, he's properly put in his place after by MJF on the mic. But he's also put over as a wrestler. We also get the revelation about like the history between him and MJF, on the road together, making a name for themselves together. Wheeler cites that Philadelphia is his town. He gets some cheers for that, but of course, people on the front row love MJF more. And if Punk gets booed in Chicago, Wheeler will definitely not feel at home in Philadelphia. That's exactly how it starts though. Some people in the front row don't appreciate Wheeler. They're like proper devil worshippers. But MJF manages to turn the crowd against him. He gets shouted at, like the shut the fuck up chant. The crowd then turns on him, but I think he makes a mistake here. He goes too much into the low-hanging fruit. He insults the sports teams, the famous sports personalities, and that's just basic as fuck. And he says he makes more money, and this has to be like the worst MJF promo ever. Opposite to Wheeler, there's not much content after that initial salvo. This part where he talks about like the town itself is a bit of a stretch. It starts going down at this point. I think MJF and Wheeler's objective here was to get the crowd behind Wheeler, and he did enough. He already did it. And adding the sports team talk, as well as like the sports personality talk, the insulting the town, the money thing, is just excess fat and could have been done away with. I think MJF should have like went more on his history with Wheeler instead of just like insulting the town. It's such low-hanging fruit, and it's MJF reverting back to his old self. His old self like 3 years ago, so yeah. And then Wheeler bounces back. He starts winning the mic battle. His voice is still a bit too high to be saying all these words, but the content here is really good. He'll leave MJF in a pool of blood if he fucks with him. And there's actual fear on MJF. But then of course the ass boys show up, they outnumber him. This deters Wheeler, and MJF kind of saves himself. He saves himself from that shitty low-hanging fruit part of his promo, and he properly gets back to the storyline where he threatens to cash in. He shits on the town a little bit more, and he leaves, not saying his catchphrase, letting the ass boys do it. And this is such a positive for the firm, finally seeing them with MJF, that they're actually doing shit for him, that they're like saying his promo and like correctly. And yeah, the ass boys being the ass boys, as over as they are, really helped out this whole segment, as well as I think MJF as well. So yeah, bad things happen in Philadelphia, foreshadows the events later on in the show. But yeah, overall, it's like a seesaw. To start, Wheeler was inferior. MJF dominated the shit out of him. But later on, I know the intention is to have the crowd side with Wheeler, have him win the segment. MJF did that well, but I would have preferred it without all the sports talk, without all of the low-hanging fruit. So yeah, overall, this segment is above average. Nice to see Wheeler winning like a promo battle for the first time, but he needs to work on that delivery, work on projecting a deeper voice, and not having the voice break every couple of seconds like a teenager. So yeah, aside from that, surprisingly good segment. MJF actually managed to elevate Wheeler here. And these guys are probably friends. These guys go way back. So good on both of these dudes. So after this is the AEW Championship Eliminator between Jon Moxley versus Juice Robinson. And I know it was like a shocking moment when Juice joined Bullet Club. He's one of the most charismatic guys in New Japan. But in ring, I never felt him be in that level. The level of an Okada, a Naito, a Jay White, a Kenta, or like he's just like not top tier. And he didn't help his case in this match. Because what we got here is basically like a brawl. Lots of brawling, lots of like gritty, sort of like dirty wrestling. Some eye gouges and some biting, but not as intense as the CM Punk match. That match made you feel just filthy. They made it feel more like a fight. And I think that's what they should have went for here. Because from the start, we get like Juice Robinson attacking Mox early. We get the bite spots. We get like a criminally low amount of grapple moves. About like 4 for the whole match. Most is like punching and just pantomiming to the crowd. It's just like a lot of working the crowd stuff. A lot of yelling, and I don't think that's what the AEW fans expect from a guy from New Japan, or just like not what AEW fans want. This match right here was very disappointing. As a guy who's on the same level of Jon Moxley in New Japan, but of course not in AEW, he didn't really showcase himself well. They both failed to reach like another gear in the match, and this was just forgettable. The one spot of the match is like the eye gouge spot into the powerbomb by Juice, but that's it. And as for the finish, I think Juice tapped out too fast. He looked very bad here. Juji Katami, and then he taps out right away. I don't understand the booking. Juice is supposed to be like Jay White's number 2, right? Or like the new number 2. I don't think it's Kenta anymore. And yeah, they should have went for like a faster match. Juice was capable of those before, but yeah, he doesn't really show it here. And neither does Mox. This was a bad pairing, in my opinion. And if you bring Bullet Club in, at least bring in more of them. Just to like back each other up. It could promote the faction more, it could make the match more interesting. And yeah, just be better all around. But yeah, this match is TV undercard only. But is better than the first one. I think the post-match here is a lot better. Since first we have like a face-to-face between Hangman and Mox. Hangman gets a nice crowd pop, he gets a nice chant of cowboy shit. He still has that goodwill from the fans, and I like how he throws down his wallet just so it won't impede his fighting. But before they throw hands, MJF interrupts them. He states the obvious. I think he's hammering this in too much now about him cashing his chip. It's getting too obvious. This guy had more subtlety back then. But now he's just spouting out his plans. And I kinda don't like it. It's like you're treating the audience as dummies just like the WWE did when Vince was in charge. It's too on the nose. Especially the part about you're just fighting to lose. As a booker, at least don't make that as obvious as you can. But the fight between Wheeler and MJF, or the assault of Wheeler to MJF, was a lot better. It's like one of those pictures taken before disaster memes. And I love how MJF uses his senses. He hears the crowd starting to cheer, and he gets the sense that something's off. It's nice that sight isn't the end-all be-all sense in professional wrestling. They reach the crowd, they even fall down to the chairs. Wheeler gets the upper hand, but MJF leaves standing. And yeah, this does nice in protecting him. He insults the Philadelphia crowd, and it doesn't make him look too weak. But it does make Wheeler look very good. So yeah, post-match segment is better than the match itself. Poor Juice Robinson doesn't get any shine, so I think this was a waste of time. If you're gonna bring in Bullet Club, bring the rest of them in. At least bring in Ace Austin, the other dude, I forgot the name. That other dude, maybe Jado or something, or Gato, House of Torture, whoever. But as a 1v1, maybe don't bring in the in-ring charisma dude, or just one of them. Bullet Club needs to be a group to actually be effective. So yeah, after this is the hype-up video for Bandido versus Chris Jericho. It's basic stuff. Tells people who Bandido is, but that's pretty much it. Doesn't really get too deep though. But I really fucking love Bandido's entrance gear. He's a Mexican cowboy, luchador, who has guns on his gloves and wears a hat. It's very aesthetically pleasing. And I think him and Hangman Page should be a tag team, since they're both cowboys, of course. But yeah, this was a decent segment. It doesn't do a lot. It's alright. So to open up the second hour of Dynamite, we have Saraya's promo. And it's alright at the start. I don't like the presidential campaigning type of promo. And I don't like that they acknowledge that their women's division has been bad. Especially when the champion is not really that good. Not a big fan of Toni Storm yet. And I also don't like the sort of shoot style, she's now being utilized more type of statement. So yeah, on second thought, this start wasn't really that good. Britt Baker, when she comes out, saves the segment. And now she comes out with more girls. She adds Penelope Ford to the team. And as for the back and forth, Britt dropped bombs like facts, while Saraya just went for the low-hanging fruit. Pretty juvenile stuff. She cut better promos in her movie. And Britt went all shooting on Thunder Rosa, which did not need to happen, even if Rosa kind of has it coming. But she then shifts the focus to the match to come after. She puts over Serena Deeb, Saraya puts over Toni Storm, and then they have a lumberjack match. Again, this is another thing that's very WWE-like, because they set up a match during a non-wrestling segment, and yeah, it doesn't work in today's time. The transition here felt very awkward. And to add to that, Paige's promo, her promo skills have fucking declined by a lot. She hasn't been out there for a long time, so yeah, I mean, such a bad way to make your non-wrestling segment debut on a fucking Dynamite. That's not your actual surprise debut where the surprise takes over the actual skill that you put in the thing. But yeah, hopefully this gets better. MVP of the segment is Britt Baker. Saraya, not very good promo here. I don't care if she shoots on the WWE, but it's less effective now because the old man's gone. So And Hunter was like behind her the whole time. So yeah, its effect is lessened now. And to add to this, the competitors of the match felt like background characters, which is not good. I'm not feeling Toni Storm as champion yet. Just give it to Athena or Ruby Soho or something. Or back to Hikaru Shida or like Jamie Hayter, whoever. Or you know what, fucking Serena Deeb as champion. Or finally just pay Thunder Rosa or something. As for the match itself, a women's championship match between Toni Storm and Serena Deeb, it's a well-structured match that starts with a lot of like wrist locks, some basic wrestling lockups. Lumberjacks don't do a lot at the start, but Deeb and Storm go for like high spots right away. A high spot, which I think is needed for women's matches in AEW because they end up very quiet. But the match ends up pretty quiet. I think they should have just went for a technical match. Deeb is very capable. If it's a women's match in AEW, there's a stigma there. So you have to go big to get the right reactions. I think that it's like registered in people's minds that they should be quiet during women's matches in AEW, except if it's like a tag team or like 4 women are in the ring. So yeah, it could have really helped if they just went for a show stealer right away, where there's so many things happening, even if it's like technical stuff. Kind of like Rosa versus Deeb in the pay-per-view. They should have went for a pay-per-view match, is what I'm saying. Lumberjacks don't really do much anyway. They just throw people in the ring. They don't even like attack much. Some timings here were off. The part near the finish was a lot better. The moves hit harder. The selling was better. But I think the match was already poisoned by the start. The crowd was lost at this point. Even if the finish was friggin' awesome. It's an avalanche pile driver where the crowd didn't make as much noise as it should have. As they should have. Match might be better than the previous ones. Yeah, it's better than the previous ones. It's a TV undercard only match, but better than Mox versus Juice and definitely better than Danielson versus Menard. Match-wise, Dynamite isn't really that good tonight. Sad to say. Top 2 spots of the match, I just have 2 for this one. So number 2 is Serena's like submission thing that she does, followed by like the roll-ups after this and the submission after that. Yeah, this one right here. And then number 1 is the finish. Highest impact spot of the match. Looked really devastating but failed to save the rest of the match. So yeah, TV undercard only. Let's move on to the next segment. So next segment, I think should have happened in the ring. It's gonna happen on Rampage, on National Scissoring Day, so I think this is why they moved this to Rampage, but this is your tag team champs. This is one of the most over acts in the entire company. That is homegrown. They deserve to be on Dynamite tonight more than any of the other matches on the show, honestly. You could have had this interaction between them and Keith and maybe Swerve in the ring. Keith accuses them of cheating, of like being carried by Daddy Ass. He has a point. I would love to hear the crowd reaction to this, but it's already out there and the effect is going to be lessened on Rampage. Acclaimed amazing in the segment as usual, as well as Daddy Ass. Keith also does a good job here, but just the placement of this, that it's not in the actual arena, takes away from this. Tony Khan needs to get his priorities straight. He needs to get a booking team or something or whatever, because this here was a missed opportunity. So after this is an alright segment. It's Andrade getting pissed off at Private Party. He's siding with Butcher and the Blade. Oh, how far Private Party have fallen. They made all of like the kayfabe worst career decisions, but at least we're seeing them on TV again. It's nice to see Andrade on TV again. I think they're setting up trios feuds, but I think they should end with Andrade facing off with the leader, like or like the best member of the Dark Order, which is Hangman Page, and then beating him. But yeah, this gets Andrade on TV. It doesn't move the storyline along with 10 though. I think they're holding that until after Hangman loses against Mox. So yeah, pretty minor segment, but this brings Private Party back to prominence. as well as Matt Hardy. But Andrade should be used in better segments, by the way. Have Ingobernables be the biggest threat in the company. Have them be like a crisis. Have them go for like titles or something or whatever before MJF gets it. Because when MJF gets that belt and holds it until next year, or like more than a year, probably more than a year, Andrade will be long gone from the company. They should do something with him right now. Even if it's not for the titles, but most preferably for the titles. So positive things about this segment is that Private Party are getting revived. They're getting a second wind. As well as, at minimum, Andrade has not left the company yet. But it's not the best segment of the night. Or anywhere near second or third, as well as like anything else. MJF segments are like first, second, and third. You need to do better. The fuck's wrong with you, AEW? So after this is something that should be on a Rampage. It's a squash match between Ricky Starks and a jobber. I don't even know who the jobber is. I was too pissed off to care. What a waste of time. I think Tony Khan is cramming. I don't even care if the finish was pretty funny. This shouldn't be happening. I refuse to give this match a grade. Or why'd you put it here? Why put a very pointless squash match so late in the show? This could have been a promo segment. Tony Khan, please. Cut this shit. I honestly think the card for Rampage is a lot more promising than Dynamite. Yeah. I'm going to review Rampage this week, and it's probably going to be better than Dynamite. And then after this, video promo by Jungle Boy on Luchasaurus. It's alright, but it's too short. This should have been in the ring. Video segment did nothing for me, and I think for most people. This should have been in the ring or backstage, and not just a vignette. Tony Khan, cut this shit. So after this is Chris Jericho versus Bandido for the ROH World Heavyweight Championship, and this is the only match that makes the show watchable. This is the only match you should watch from this show. And just like watch the MJF Wheeler Yuta segments, those were good 2 segments of the night. Even if a bit janky from both MJF and from Wheeler. They both had some pretty glaring flaws there. But for this match, this was it. This is what AEW should be. And it's not even for like an AEW belt. It's for Ring of Honor. So match is moderately paced. Bandido goes for the high-flying stuff, of course. This makes the match less monotonous than the Moxley versus Juice match. And this also gives the AEW fans a better first impression of like the debuting guy. I think Bandido won everyone over here. Especially with the military press spot that he converts to like a one-hander. And then he flexes with the other. I've seen this done in Ric Flair's last match, but to do it to someone Jericho's size is very impressive. But there's this one spot that I think made Jericho look very dumb. Because he gets thrown out of the ring, gets a hold of the ropes, he barely hangs on. Bandido is watching this from inside the ring, but then Jericho goes up the top turnbuckle and then does a diving move and gets thrust kicked in the stomach. How did you not know this was gonna happen? Bandido had you scouted 100% of the way. Bandido was waiting right there, and I think if Bandido actually got caught in the jumping attack, this would have like decreased the match's score. But since Bandido got the upper hand very convincingly, this for me is alright, acceptable, but still a dumb spot to go for. But they make up for it with this like suplex hold up spot. If you think about how this like logically works, it becomes less impressive by just a little bit. But it's awesome seeing wrestlers go for this spot for like this long. It goes for about a minute. It's like this suplex, like hold up spot. It's like holding a person in suplex position for a minute. This got the crowd up their feet. Loudest pop of the night. This is a nice working the crowd moment. And they succeed 100%. They got the crowd to suspend their disbelief. And for me, this is when the crowd, I think, got invested in the match. 100%. And I like that Bandido falls down. He doesn't like do something right away. He sells his legs because that's gotta be torture for the legs, as well as Jericho's head. So next big thing is a code breaker. That doesn't connect 100%. It's like characteristic of the code breakers Chris Jericho does now. But then the next spot here is like a Hurricane Rana from the apron to the outside. Jericho takes a bump and this was awesome. And then Bandido starts to bleed. He bleeds through his mouth and then it shows on his white ass mask. Right mask to pick for the match. And then they have this multi-stage strike battle that starts from like them crouched or like kneeling to them standing, slap to the chest, chop to the chest. It could have been stiffer. The strikes could have been harder, but it's alright. And then Bandido somehow ends on the apron. He rolls out, he ends on the apron, and then Jericho goes for the springboard dropkick to like knock Bandido off. But expectations are subverted. Like for the first time, a spot like this happens where Bandido goes towards Jericho and then power bombs him off of like the springboard motion. Great spot. Might be top 1. This is the spot that gets a "This is awesome" chant. The Walls of Jericho spot for this match is this finisher that he does. I don't know if this is his finisher. It's not listed on Cage Match, so I guess it's just like a signature move. It's like a GTH, but in a powerbomb position, like a crucifix powerbomb position. Jericho escapes and then catches Bandido's legs as he's going for the knee. So with a bloody mask, Bandido reaches the ropes, rope break, Jericho in control. And then for the unquestioned spot of the match, we have like a Spanish fly fall away slam, followed by a low effort pin, where Bandido just puts an arm on Jericho, but Jericho kicks out. Match of the night. I mean, it's obvious, come on. And then he finally hits the X knee. Jericho turns around, grabs the ropes, and is set up in the weirdest finisher condition if this was a game ever. Bandido goes for a 21 plex. Jericho kicks out. Crowd is in. Crowd is on fucking fire. And then we get the finish, which I hate. I hate like this mask manipulation spot. It's overdone in AEW, and mostly it's just like people taking off other people's masks. They should make a rule out of this, like the rule that Noah has, where if you touch the mask, it's a DQ. Because it just gets very obvious in matches against luchadors. So same way here, but I love how this finishes. Jericho pulls Bandido's mask down. It covers his eyes, and then even with eyes covered, he manages to get Jericho in like a pin. He rolls him up. Jericho kicks out. Bandido still unable to like fix his mask. Gets caught in a lion tamer. He can't see where he is. Mask is also down, so it's like on his nose. He can't breathe well, so he has no choice but to tap out. Jericho wins via submission. Fucking great match. This is better than Cara Noir versus Yuki Ueno, and this is like almost there with Kiyomiya versus fucking Keno. So yeah, before we get to the post-match segment, time for spots of the match. Number 3 is the Hurricane Rana to the outside. Number 2 is the powerbomb where Bandido chases Jericho down as he does his like springboard dropkick. And then number 1 spot is the Spanish fly fall away slam. And so yeah, as for the post-match segment, Jericho sets up his goal as a villain and then starts. Actually, he goes after 2 people right away. So that's Bandido 1, the Ring of Honor ring announcer 2, and then he announces that he's going to face Bryan Danielson. And I don't know how to feel about this because we've had like 2 matches between these two, one being meh and the other one being really fucking epic. But I don't know if this is gonna work like right away. Maybe just keep them away from each other for a while. I don't know how you can have Danielson lose right away. I mean, I don't know how you can have Jericho lose the title right away. So he's probably gonna beat Danielson, but that's not gonna make much sense. So yeah, and then how the hell are you gonna have him face every great Ring of Honor champion? Because a lot of those people are in the WWE, so you can't really have him face everyone. He's probably gonna face everyone on AEW, but that's gonna include Samoa Joe, and I don't think Joe's losing to Jericho. But yeah, I mean, Joe did lose to Adam Cole, so I guess anything could happen. But yeah, this is a nice storyline for Jericho. Nice storyline for Ring of Honor, where it's on the verge of extinction. It's with someone who doesn't give a shit. And yeah, it's ironic that a storyline about the annihilation of Ring of Honor might be the one to bring fans in. And I think this move is genius. So yeah, great match, great post-match segment, TV main event, pay-per-view main event level. So that's third highest rating I can give. So yeah, this show is a one-match show. It has some nice segments, but honestly, Bandido versus Jericho is the only reason why you should watch this show. I think DDT did better. The What's Up show is like a lot better than this, and it has like Konosuke versus Higuchi, which you should watch. So yeah, that is the show. That's Dynamite. It's not very good tonight, guys. I'm sorry. And this might be like a below average Dynamite, but it's not the worst. There was nothing atrociously bad, just like pretty boring. But I think it's a better show than the one main evented by Mox and Brody King. So yeah, meh Dynamite, it was mid. Great main event, but Dynamite should be better. AEW should do better because the competition on the other side is getting a whole lot better. So yeah, like, comment, and subscribe for engagement. Share if you do not know me. Hit that bell notification for future videos, and please, watch my shit.